Hey everybody, Scott Axworthy here in the shop, and I'm here to talk about the Axworthy Flying Ghost. This project began back in the mid-80s when my brother and I were talking Halloween and specifically flying ghosts. He had an idea of pulley wheels and strings, and I ran with it. It premiered the first version at one of my Halloween parties. I certainly never called it the Axworthy Flying Ghost. It wasn't until 1995 that I posted the concept on the internet's first Halloween meeting space, Don Bertino's much beloved Halloween-L mailing list. Denny Dom, a brilliant maker, dubbed it the Axworthy Automatic Outdoor Ghost Flying System and Bicycle Wheel Recycler. Luckily, the shorter name stuck, and it's taken on a life of its own on the internet ever since. The internet never forgets, and I found the original posting from Saturday, June 3rd, 1995. It was just an email list, of course, no pictures, just text and ASCII art. And here is an ancient video from the ghost flying at that first party. The path for this ghost was a little over 400 feet long and circumnavigated my house. It took 5 corner wheels to make that path. 2 of those were on one big multi-trunk maple tree. What made the effect work so well was that the ghost flew silently, at least when everything was working correctly. The ghost can fly around a really large area. It has a look that is just hard to beat. You couldn't see the string in the dark, and the ghost flew some really tight places, and he could move pretty fast. People loved it. Today you can find many how-tos and videos, and even frightprops.com has AFG components for sale. And it was fun to get an email last year just before Halloween with the subject, "Save 10% off Axworthy Ghost Kits right now." I can't tell you how much I loved seeing that. But the AFG is a tough project. Many have tried and failed, and many curse my name to this day. There are some key challenges that we'll dive into so that your AFG will be more reliable and look great. Several years ago, we moved. I have an excellent Halloween house now with a huge yard. Last year, I decided it was time that the ghost flew again. I haven't found a good path yet, but I wanted to get it up, and so I planted the drive wheel right in my front yard. It's really a horrible location, but it got me going. 2 other wheels and trees forming a triangle with a total length of almost 600 feet. I built several versions, but this is most of the original, and the ghost is still definitely the original. Out of all the ghosts I've built, for some reason, this one still looks and works the best. Here we are at the light board. We need to define a few definitions. First off, I call any of the wheels corner wheels. That's where a turn happens of some type. That's my corner. But there's 2 different types. There's inside systems and outside systems. And that's just the way I think about it. The inside system, the infrastructure is all on the outside, and all the actions happening on the inside of that infrastructure. An outside system, the wheels, everything's on the inside, the infrastructure is inside, and the ghost runs on the outside. I prefer these outside systems. And the reason is when they make an inside system, you've got some mount and then a pole to a structure to a wheel, and that ghost has to fly around this outside, but it's easy for it, if it has any momentum, to then hit your infrastructure. And I like to run my ghosts fairly fast, so turns can be a little bit violent, and you need an extra long distance here for that to work. And of course, this is a top-down view. This wheel has some kind of mount if we look at it from the side, and here's our wheel, and so that has to be on the bottom because of course our ghost is going to hang down and fly around that corner. So this distance needs to be long, and that's hard to make that wheel stable. But on the outside, it's the opposite. Since we're flying around it, the wheel can be much closer because the ghost is going around the outside of the whole system. So I prefer those. It's much easier to stabilize something with a short arm. And the key factors in the systems, especially for making them stable, number one is definitely ghost weight. Again, I've tried so many different things on making heavy-duty ghosts, heavy-duty ghost systems, and I'll show a couple things in a moment here when we look at some of the actual hardware on how I tried to make it so you could have a very heavy ghost. But the bottom line is, depending on what line you have and how tight it is, with long distances especially, you get a big sag, and then you approach a wheel, and what happens is the sag in the line wants to then, it comes up at the bottom of the wheel and walks right off the bottom of the wheel. The whole system collapses. So ghost weight is just a huge key to the whole thing. Corner tuning. So when we have a wheel, let's call this our wheel, and it's got some mount here in the center. The way, if the system was completely flat and there was no weight, you've got some kind of line and it wraps around this wheel perfectly right in the middle. But what really happens is the system sags, and as the ghost approaches the wheel, hits that bottom, and again wants to walk right off the bottom. Well, you can tune, depending on the direction your ghost is flying everything, you can tune these wheels if you have adequate capabilities in the mount, and so you can fine tune the approach. So there's a slight, I'm exaggerating here, so there's a slight downslope to match that line as it approaches, and it stays in. Plus, it's a yaw and pitch thing, so we can rotate in two directions if you have a universal joint of some kind. And now you can start to tune that wheel so that even with a heavier ghost, it's going to come in and not walk off the wheel and wrap around and fly out correctly. And again, we'll show some examples of this a little better. So this is a huge key. Corner tuning is a big one. Ghost speed is another key. Again, I'd like mine to go kind of fast. You've seen some pretty slow systems out there. If you've searched around and seen different versions of the Axworthy Flying Ghost, some go quite slow, very simple systems, and that works great. You can get that up and running quite rapidly. But if you want something a little higher end, you want that ghost flying with some speed, that speed is a big factor because it changes the dynamics on these wheels in a big way. And my dreaded factor, weather, rain and wind, these things that are out of our control. My system's just been destroyed over the years between either rain or wind. Rain just weighs down your ghost and everything goes, and wind blows it into all the bushes that you've carefully pruned to try to make it fly around, and again everything crashes and burns. So this is a tough one. And just a few other things that I need to highlight at this point. Wheel size is important. You can use very small wheels if it's a really simple system and it's going slow, because that ghost is going to come up and just go around a very tight turn, and it won't be a big deal. But if you're flying your ghost rapidly, or you have tight turns, a simple system but very tight turns, that wheel size becomes very important. I use large wheels. The method you attach whatever the string or wire, whatever you have around your system, the method you attach your ghost to that system is important. And I used to do very complicated, I call it the ski lift attachment, because it was a piece of piano wire, had a little brass tubing that rode across that string, that was slipped over that string, which had a little 90-degree piece of tubing soldered onto it. So it was a piece of tubing and a piece of tubing. It actually had some bracing. So this was all in little brass tubing, and that slipped over the string. And then I could come up with this little piano wire attachment that had a little attach point, and I could tie this off to my ghost. And that was fascinating because it would ride through these wheels, offset. It wouldn't get wrapped in there. But this just added complications. It was very good for some things, and but again, would cause some problems at times, depending on all these other factors. So I simply tie a string to my string now. You've got some string, tie a loop, and I usually keep a little loop on there so I can quickly attach and detach the ghost to this. And it works quite well. It works the best. In string type, I've used essentially what was wire fishing line and all this tarred crab pot line. I really prefer the crab pot line. It takes a few days for it to finish stretching, and there's some tricks to just coming out each day and tightening the line a little bit more and a little bit more. But the crab pot line works so great. It's dark. Again, you can't see it, and it's super strong. And I'll show some examples. So these are all the key factors. Let's get into some real world implementation. Drive wheel does not have all the adjustments that the other wheels have. It's important to get this one set and make everything relative to this one. Extra bracing is important to keep this really steady. Have an old sewing machine motor, a very small metal drive wheel, and that has a belt of just another piece of this crab pot line string as its belt, driving on the inside, so it doesn't matter what the main drive line does. This will not interfere. Rain cover, and here comes our friend. And on the back side, this is usually call them like routers, motor controllers for varying the speed on a router or a drill or some tool. Works okay with this particular motor, not the best. And just a post in the ground here for where I had to put it this year. This corner wheel has all the features of my last design. Again, it has both angles for adjustment You can adjust that wheel to any angle necessary to allow the line to ride perfectly. It also has an extra feature here, which was from a heavy-duty Ghost system I was trying to develop, and I did use this on certain wheels for quite a while with good success. But you can see it's not in alignment at the moment, but it's right out here, and it holds the line up, so it doesn't matter how heavy the Ghost is, it'll come up and then go through the pulley wheel perfectly. The most important part here is those two little brackets. You can adjust the angle of attack for the Ghost and get the wheel just perfectly set so it's riding at the top edge there. Also have an extra brace on there, which makes a huge difference. Also favor the incoming side of the tree as it needs that room as it approaches, and then it swings out wide as it exits, so it can be closer on the outgoing side. Okay, a few final things, some more details. Again, I was talking about the wheel size. Here's an example of a pretty short mount wheel, 24 inches, just a big bike wheel. And there you can again see my version of a universal joint. One of my systems that I built for the Woodland Park Zoo Halloween event there in Seattle. It was the nicest hardware. I used drum set hardware, specifically tom-tom mounts, an arm with the most amazing universal joint, and then a stub coming off, and I welded and bolted all my hardware onto that. But that universal joint is just amazing. It's so easy to adjust to the angles that you need. Highly recommended. Gets expensive and a lot of work, but it's absolutely amazing. Here's one more example of a big one, a long one. Again, 24-inch bike wheel, but a very long aluminum frame on this one. This does also have the leading guide wheel for a heavy Ghost that then keeps the line smack dab in the groove. Next up, line. I love the crab pot line tarred braided twine. It's just amazing. I use all different sizes, use it for all kinds of Halloween use. There's 3 different sizes I rely on. We'll see if this shows it up better. Number 36, the big stuff. Don't really use that for the Ghost system. Number 18 is my go-to for the main line around the Ghost system. And I believe this is number 9. The smallest that I use is just for like the Ghost attachment to the line. But that line's terrific. It does stretch a little bit at first, and you can just keep tightening it over the course of a couple days, and it will be fine. I did also use this high-end fishing line, 90-pound test, metal. It's a twist metal. That was pretty darn good. You can crank this so tight that the rest of your system will collapse. The problem with this is twofold. First of all, being metal, it clinks on the edges of the bike rims and can make noise, which I do not like. And second, you need like these little sleeves because you've got to be able to tie this stuff together and can make little loops, but you need those little sleeves and a crimping tool, and then you can crimp the wire into a loop. Then you still need something to be able to adjust it. So I still ended up using a section of the crab pot line, but it worked very well. It was very reliable, but my go-to is the crab pot line. Let's see, finally, wouldn't be complete. We didn't bring in Mr. Ghost. This poor fellow. Oh my gosh. He's just been through the ringer. He is so old now. Back in the day, we did not have skeletons from Home Depot. We had to make our own, and that was another thing on the Halloween L list. I introduced the idea of making skeletons from spray foam insulation. You can take wax paper and spray out your bones, but it's very light, and I'd stick wire on the inside. He's been repaired so many times. He's had a lot of hot glue surgery, so it weighs a little more than when he started. Inside was just, oh my gosh, cheesecloth and fabric stiffener and spray paint and of course the ever wonderful hanger wire is his whole frame, and then the super light drop cloth plastic is his cover, which helps in the foul weather and gives him a look. But somehow this guy just keeps hanging on, so he's still on the team. Anyway, that's it from the shop and the first round of an Axworthy Flying Ghost video. So thank you for making it this far through. See you later.